Draco Meteor from Raging Bolt takes 3 hits to destroy the natural world. 2 hit KOs Lando with 8 mode after an Intimidate. I might just be underestimating it. The stats are good. Supreme Overlord is crazy. So what I'm going to do is a tier list. There's 12 tracks, there's 12 Pokemon. I'm going to go through each one, and we'll just talk about how it would fit into the Gen 9 OU metagame. This will come as no surprise to anybody. Cracker Relativity, hit band, New Zealand band, have dropped their newest album. You know, #1 in the New Zealand charts. I don't know if they have any international fame. They might just be a kind of local phenomenon, but they're really big in my country. And I thought I would share Cracker Relativity with you all because my lawyer says I have to phrase all of this with allegedly. Allegedly, someone has leaked an official Pokemon X Cracker Relativity crossover where they're going to be adding a Pokemon into Generation 10 for each of the tracks on Animal Kingdom. You didn't hear it from me, but I think you'll find that come Generation 10, maybe end of next year, I don't know when it's planned, you might see some familiar faces. But these are just leaks. But I wanted to talk about them because they're interesting, and there's some cool Pokemon, there's some cool niches, there's some typings that I don't think we've seen before in Pokemon games. So obviously Gen 10 might have its own gimmick, I don't know what that's going to be. Probably there won't be Terrestrialize anymore. But we'll just play a little hypothetical game. If these Pokemon got into Gen 9, would they be any good? Would they be usable? Or would they be bad? So, let me hand over to Spreadsheet Henry with the goods for you. Hi, Spreadsheet Henry here. So, here is the track listing for Animal Kingdom. It's the album. If you're in New Zealand, this album cover is like, you know, it's on the buses, it's on the trains. There was a helicopter flying a trailing banner with this album cover on it. There's a lot of fanfare. But yeah, I don't know if they've had any international success. Anyway, so here's the track listing. There's 12 tracks. You can see a couple of features. So I'll show you the format. Here's what we're looking at. We've got a tier list. I've got the usage stats for October. You'll see Kyurem, how do you say that? You'll see Kyurem there in number 17. Kyurem's got banned, so the metagame changes, but it's basically the same fellas. These are all the guys we've been seeing ever since Indigo Disc came out. And yeah, so we've got 12 tracks. We're going to do a tier list. We're going from S, which is banned, to Ubers, so it's way too crazy for OU. Lots of things are getting banned. There's only one of these that has like legendary stats, like 600 or higher BST, but some of them are pretty weirdly min-maxed, so I can see some of them getting banned to Ubers. A is staple, like it's appearing on this chart, right? It's OU ranked by usage. B is decent, it's got a niche, it might be one of the lower ranked things, like a Moltres or a Hatterene. C is niche, so this is probably a UU or UUBL Pokemon. It will have a role in OU, like it'll be good enough to perform in a particular team, but it won't have much breadth and it will be very hard to team build around or some other thing that keeps it from being really high usage. Finally, D is, it's unusable, right? I mean, maybe it's good in PU, but it doesn't have a home with the big kids up in OU. After all that preamble, let's have a look at our first Pokemon, shall we? So the first track is Ticket to Ape Town. I'll play you a 10-second excerpt from the song so you can get an idea, and then we'll talk about how the sound of the song translates to the stats of the Pokemon and the effect of the Pokemon in battle. So here is Ticket to Ape Town, track 1. Did you like it? I liked it. I believe those were gibbons. So no lyrics in this one, it's kind of atmospheric and ambient, which is going to lead to a very low attack stat. It doesn't have like a really high tempo, so we're getting a very low speed stat. But the HP stat is good, you know, it's got a depth. And the special attack stat is high, right? It has that interesting, weird experimental factor that you need to get a high special attack stat. The BST is overall pretty low. 481 is nothing to write home about. Just looking at the stat line, it's not really exciting, right? There are plenty of bad Pokemon with stats that are better than these. We'll see if it can make up for it with its ability. Well, look at that. They've given Punk Rock to another Pokemon. Normalize is pretty bad, typically. We'll see the moveset next, but Normalize turns all your moves into normal type moves. Now, it's a normal type, but mono normal type isn't that good, and making you unable to use coverage is pretty bad. Punk Rock and Liquid Voice suggests this Pokemon's going to get some sound-based moves. So let's have a look. I can see Boom Burst, and maybe that's enough, right? Boom Burst is very, very strong. Can it redeem this Pokemon? I mean, Punk Rock Boom Burst. It's strong on Toxtricity, right? Toxtricity can Terra Normal with Boom Burst, Punk Rock, and do a bunch of damage. This thing has a higher special attack stat than Toxtricity, and it's normal type already, so Terra Normal will boost Boom Burst even more. The problem is it's really slow, and its bulk is fine, probably. The HP stat's good. Well, defense is okay, special defense is bad. Coverage is fine. Fairy's kind of nice, like it's kind of nice. It can't hit steel types. Is what I thought when I first looked at this Pokemon. I was going to put this in, like, niche to unusable. I thought it was... It didn't impress me, right? The stats aren't that good. Punk Rock Boom Burst feels way too linear. It's like, okay, you can do that. But what else can you do, right? I mean, Parting Shot's kind of interesting. It makes you want to do, like, Choice Specs, and then you click Boom Burst, or you click Parting Shot if you think you're going to switch in. So I was prepared to rate this in D. And then I ran a few calcs. Modest, Choice Specs, Punk Rock, Terra Normal Ape, one-shots a Kingambit, if the Kingambit doesn't have any defense investment. A Kingambits will. They'll have some HP, so they can probably take it, but it's coming close to one-shotting a defensive Kingambit. It has a 50% chance of OHKOing Assault Vest Slowking Galar. This is one of the premier special walls. It gets 9th in the tier. It's the premier special wall of OU, and it gets OHKO'd by the monkey. And so suddenly I'm thinking, oh, this is like a Dracovish situation. Like, this ape has these stacking multipliers, right? It's got Boom Burst, normal stab, Terra, boosting the stab, Punk Rock, multiplier. Similar to Dracovish's double from going first on Fisher's Rend, and then the water stab, and then the strong draw. So it's hitting really hard. This is like a Chi-Yu calc. This is like a, oh, you don't have a switch into me. You can see it does 63 to 74% to maximum specially defensive Corviknight, which is a resist. Jesus, right? 2 shots Corviknight, no matter what Corviknight does. And then I was like, wait, is this thing busted? And it becomes harder to analyze than I thought it would, because these calcs are crazy, but it has a terrible speed stat and middling bulk. Like, if you look at Rampardos can give you some crazy calcs, but that doesn't make it good. Rampardos is bad. Is this a Rampardos, or is it a Dracovish? I think it's somewhere in between. It does have some defensive problems, so here's some defensive calcs I found which are bad for it. So Zamazenta, Body Press, if it comes in and it gets the Intrepid Shield boost, has a 37% chance to OHKO, even if I invest in HP, which is not great, right? And obviously Zamazenta outspeeds. Draco Meteor from Dragapult also has a favoured roll to kill. And that's pretty bad because Dragapult and Golden Go are the problems for this guy. Now, I think Golden Go kind of walls you, especially defensive Golden Go. It resists Alluring Voice and Psychic Noise, and it's immune to Boom Burst. So you can't really deal with Golden Go, you just have to switch out. And it blocks Parting Shot. So I think Golden Go just ruins this guy's whole day. With Dragapult, though, you can click Alluring Voice and it OHKOs Dragapult, but the prediction game and Dragapult can revenge kill you easily. And then Tusk, who's on every team, he's everywhere, will OHKO you without attack investment with close combat. So I don't think this is good. The offensive calcs are interesting, but I don't think it's good enough. Now, past Henry put it in B, right? Because I was still kind of writing those calcs. I think that's too high. I think it should be in C. I'll update the spreadsheet for the end with the final scores. Yeah, I would put it in between B and C. It's either like a low B or a high C. I think it can do something with that crazy Boom Burst, but I don't expect it to see like mainstream meta success. I think the stats are just too low everywhere else. Okay, so that's Ticket to Ape Town, and it's a really interesting start, you know? It's a taste of what's to come, but it's not the meat of the album. And it certainly didn't prepare me for Mecha Ape the first time I heard Mecha Ape. So Mecha Ape is the natural follow-on from the Ticket to Ape Town, but it's certainly a change. I'll play you a segment now and then we'll get to stats.
That was until this year when the most mind-blowing masterpiece of fiction graced us humans with its existence. Just watching the trailer and gazing upon Mecha Ape's shining body.
So that was Mecha Ape, and it really hits, doesn't it? It's a kind of soundscape with some gripping lyrics on top of it. For stats, it's a step up from Ticket to Ape Town. It's got a crazy high attack stat, really good special bulk with 130 HP and 120 defense. Passable defense, and then middling to slow speed. Special attack doesn't, it'll be a physical attacker. So it's like pretty min-maxed. And the keen-eyed among you will notice the 570 BST. It's a Paradox Pokemon. It's in fact the future Paradox form of Ape from the previous track. What does it know? Well, the catch with Mecha Ape is that the only high-power moves it learns are recoil moves. So it gets Double Edge, Flare Blitz, so it's a normal Steel type, which is interesting. We haven't ever had one of those before, as far as I can remember. And it gets recoil moves. So Flare Blitz, Double Edge, it gets Wild Charge. It doesn't get Brave Bird, but I guess that would be unfitting. But it gets all the other main recoil moves. And then it gets a signature move, Ape Mode, which is essentially a Steel type Flare Blitz. It's 100 base power. It does recoil like Flare Blitz, and it has a 10% chance to flinch, which is gonna cause a bunch of nightmares, you know. I would have won, but I got flinched by Ape Mode. I can feel the salt already for when this drops in Gen 10. It does get Bullet Punch, which is not recoil. It gets a few other low power moves. It gets like Metal Claw and stuff, but nothing in that kind of 70 plus range except for recoil. So it's going to be doing heaps of damage. I mean, they're strong moves, right? 120 base power, but it's on a timer. It does, however, get some crazy setup moves. So shift gear is cracked, right? Like 87 speed doesn't look that impressive, but with a shift gear, doubling it and getting +1 attack, that sounds really good. No Retreat is an insane move. That's Phalanx's signature. It gives you an Omni boost, but locks you in. Yeah, this one's hard to evaluate. It looks scary, like those are scary moves. Certainly scary moves. It also gets Quark Drive, so you can give it a booster energy. There's no way to get a speed boost from it, because its attack stat's so high. I believe you can get a special defense boost if you really drop attack, but you don't really want to do that. So if you're running booster energy, you're going to be getting attack 90% of the time. But that sounds pretty good. Booster energy on 150 attack? Like, yeah, and then I'm hitting with a stab Double Edge, a stab Steel type Flare Blitz? Like, yes please. And I don't think there's much that can switch into these things. So I didn't run any calcs for most of these Pokemon, because I don't want this video to take all day. I felt like I needed to really understand Ticket to Ape Town. This one, I know that it OHKOs Corviknight with Flare Blitz. I know that it 2-hit KOs Lando with Ape Mode after an Intimidate. It's strong. Where did I rank it? I ranked it in Banned. So I ranked these as I went. So these first few, I didn't kind of have a sense of things. I think I might drop them both by a tier after the fact, because although I think that Mecha Ape is cracked, having to take recoil is such a big downside that, I don't know, but it does seem really good. Like, it's really strong, but it loses to Tusk, and it loses to Lando, and it loses to Zama. It can Flare Blitz Golden Go, Double Edge does a chunk to Raging Bolt. Oh, it does OHKO Iron Valiant with Bullet Punch. That's a funny calc. It's 100% Iron Valiant with Bullet Punch. Just straight kill. So it's really strong. Like, don't laugh at that attack stat. But, yeah, I don't know if it would get banned. I think if it was an OU, it would be really good. It would probably force some changes in the meta. But Dondozo ruins this thing. It can Wild Charge, but Wild Charge is significantly weaker than its other moves. But Dondozo can switch into an Ape mode just fine. And it can heal, and if you're healing, then the Ape is getting worn down and the Ape has no reliable healing. Maybe you use it with a Wish Pokemon. You run like a Lomomola plus Mecha Ape, and that could be pretty good. Yeah, there's potential for there to be a team which just breaks this Pokemon. Like, maybe there's the right kind of support, but maybe there isn't, and then it's probably just not very good. Okay, so next up, we'll keep moving, is Hippo-Campus. So I'll play a segment of Hippo-Campus for you. Here you go.
Hippo's got the biggest niptalians. Sickness or thickness. Oh my biggest opicryptalians.
So that was Hippo-Campus. We'll have a look at the Pokemon. So it's a poison dark type, which is a famously good typing. Dark helps with poison's weaknesses to psychic. Poison helps with dark's weaknesses to fairy and fighting, leaving only the ground weakness. It's very nice synergy. And yeah, good defensive type. Stats are weird. I was not expecting this, right? Because when I think of hippos and Pokemon, I think of Hippowdon, which is like this bulky, slow sandstorm guy, right? We love Hippowdon. But this is not that. This has the highest stat is speed, which I wasn't expecting, but I don't know. I don't know what's going on at Game Freak. So it's speed and attack, really bad special defense, okay HP and defense. Nothing thrilling, like it doesn't look amazing. Abilities, Unaware, Oblivious, and Arena Trap. I see Arena Trap and I'm like, that's why the stats are like that. But Arena Trap's banned on Showdown. Obviously it would be Ubers, we don't know its moves, but it would be Ubers if it gets any move at all. So what we're really looking at is an Unaware Pokemon. There's pretty stiff competition for Unaware, because you'll see an OU at number 32 and number 33. We have Dondozo and Clefable. These are our kind of premier Unaware, oh, you thought you could sit up on me? Joke's on you, like, it means nothing. And even then, beyond those two, Clodsire and Scaladirge, I think they're in UU now, but those guys are still legit. Those are still good Pokemon. Hippo-Campus, it's going to have to do a lot to compete with those big guys. What does it do? Well, not enough, probably. I think that it's got these physical moves, gunk shot, close combat, drum beating's kind of interesting. But it's not that strong. 110 attack isn't what it used to be. And then for moves, it's got Psych Off, so it can heal, and that's good. And Toxic Spikes, but it doesn't get Stealth Rock, like Clefable does. So I think it's really like, is an Unaware Pokemon with that typing good? And we can look at OU. I mean, it's weak to ground, so it loses to Great Tusk and Lando. I don't think its defenses are good enough to deal with Dragapult. Like, yes, it takes a Shadow Ball, but I don't know if this is... I mean, yeah, maybe Assault Vest and then Jaw Lock the I don't know. It doesn't seem great, given the competition. Like, would I rather have this than Dondozo? It would just be for the typing, I think. So where do I rate it? I think it's niche. I mean, a lot of these Unaware guys have a use. Like, maybe Stall wants it, although I think Stall's got better things. It doesn't even get Toxic. It only gets Toxic Spikes. Yeah, it's not that impressive to me. I like the song, but as a Pokemon, I think it's lacking. You never know, though, with these Unaware Pokemon, because whether they're good is often a product of if they can check specific opponents. So, you know, Hippo-Campus might do okay against... If there was like a strong psychic type physical attacker in the tier, you know, Glade's running rampant or something, then maybe Hippo-Campus is who we need to step in. I mean, maybe it switches into Samurott Hisui, okay? Nah, but I don't really like it. I think it's niche, but I could be wrong. And if you've seen something that I've missed with this Pokemon, then please let me know in the comments. I welcome all the analyses. I am not an expert at Pokemon. I'm an amateur, I'm a novice, I'm just a commentator. I don't really know what I'm talking about. I've just watched a lot of BKC videos, and, you know, that's where I get my knowledge from. So if you have any cool team ideas or tech ideas, yeah, post in the comments. I'd be interested for any of these Pokemon to hear your thoughts. Anyway, moving on to track 4. Sluh Puppa. He is a ice normal type. Here's the song. With these stats. Okay, it's kind of crazy. 120 speed, 140 attack is good. That's a good stat line. Its defenses are terrible, right? 40 base defense, 55 base special defense, and it's a normal ice type, so it's weak to everything under the sun. What does it do? What are its abilities? Well, Slush Rush, Ball Fetch, and Snow Warning. Now, Snow Warning is really interesting, because our current Hail setters, Snow setters, are Ninetales Alola, Abomasnow, and Vanillux. And of those, I think Ninetales Alola is the best one by quite a margin. So that's really what this is competing with. Now, it's got more attack than Ninetales Alola has special attack, and it's faster, but it's much less bulky. And the moves leave something to be desired. I was reading through its move pool, and I was like, where's its Ice Stab? What's happening? It doesn't have any physical Ice Stab. It only has special ice moves. It's got Blizzard, it's got Freeze Dry, it's got Frost Breath, it's got Ice Beam. but it doesn't even get Ice Fang, let alone Icicle Crash or Ice Spear. Like it's got nothing, and its special attack is unusable. So for attacking, you're either using non-stab moves or you're using like Body Slam, normal type Body Slam, which it does get, which just seems terrible. It gets Soak, who cares? It can Swords Dance, and then it's really strong, and it can set Veil for itself. But I think, why would you use this when you can use Ninetales? I don't think it's unusable. There's probably a niche. It is strong. It hits hard and fast. Psychic Fangs is probably doing enough. You can Terror, but I don't think this is replacing Ninetales on your average snow team. Okay, track 5, Deer in the Headlights. Here's the music.
Fools make me a tremble like a tremor. Fools make me tremble.
And here are the stats. Okay, now we're talking. What the heck? 143 speed, 123 special attack. I see that 16 in defense, and I'm like, what were they cooking with this one? But I mean, I like it. It's a very electric type. That's cool. It's like a Dedenne, only much stronger. As for abilities, Illuminate, obviously terrible. Wimp Out is Golisopod's. Well, it's Wimpod's ability. Golisopod has Emergency Exit, but they do the same thing, I think. I'm pretty sure they're the same, it's just the name changes for Golisopod. But this is a Wimp Out. But then it gets an ability called Play Dead, which seems to be a new ability. And it's really weird. It kind of took me a while to get my head around. And obviously these are leaks, so I can't guarantee that I'm interpreting it right. I'll give you my interpretation, and we'll see when Gen 10 comes out whether I'm right. So the way I'm interpreting Play Dead is, it's kind of like Zoroark's Illusion, but different. So Deer in the Headlights comes in as Deer in the Headlights. It's not doing Zoroark's thing. But whenever Deer in the Headlights takes damage, it will look to the opponent as if Deer in the Headlights has fainted, and the owner of Deer in the Headlights will be forced to switch. So it's kind of like Emergency Exit, Wimp Out, and that you're forced to switch. But from your opponent's perspective, it'll read as they one-shotted it, and it will like look dead on your team sheet. But in fact, it's only switched out on whatever health it survived the hit with. It works with Focus Sash, so if you have a Focus Sash and your opponent hits your Deer in the Headlights, it won't show the Focus Sash activating. It'll just switch out and your opponent will see Deer in the Headlights fainted. I don't really know if that's any good. I don't know if it's useful. It seems kind of like a meme, right? I mean, Emergency Exit's bad, but this thing is much faster than Golisopod. And Golisopod's problem is that it's slow, so it gets hit, procs Emergency Exit, and then has to switch out before doing anything. This will probably go first, unless they've got priority. The thing is, it procs on any hit at all. And it procs multiple times per battle. Every time this comes in, it can play dead again. So maybe it's really good, like you can hit, take a hit, you switch out. It is really hard to evaluate. It's really hard to evaluate. I'm just not sure. But here are its moves, and the moves look good. It's a special attacker, and it's got a bunch of special moves. It's got nice coverage with Power Gem Dark Pulse, and Volt Switch for pivoting. I mean, it's about what you'd expect from like a good special attacker. It has Thunderwave if it needs it, but you're probably just running special attacks. The cool thing about Deer in the Headlights is that it has one more base speed than Dragapult. So you can make it always outspeed Dragapult, and it's a fairy type, and it one-shots with Dazzling Gleam, so it's a pretty good Dragapult counter. It switches into Draco Meteor. Shadow Ball it can take, because its special defense is pretty good. Here are the calcs. It OHKOs Dragapult with Dazzling Gleam, and it OHKOs Tusk, even if Tusk has HP investment as well. So that's good. It's looking good against those OU Pokemon. The problem is, even though it resists Sucker Punch, it still gets one-shot by Sucker Punch because of that 16 defense. It's kind of like Blissey in that if you invest in its defense, you can make it significantly bulkier. So you could run like a 252 defense thing, but you have to take EVs out of something. And then if you look at an actually strong, non-resisted priority move like Choice Band Grassy Glide from Rillaboom, it's doing 216% minimum. I mean, Deer in the Headlights is long gone. So it does have this crippling weakness to physical moves, and particularly physical priority. But if we look at the OU metagame, I mean, there's not too much physical priority. There's King Gambit Sucker Punch, there's a Dragapult Sucker Punch if it wants it, there's Dragonite's Extreme Speed, I mean that, you lose, you die. You can Terra Ghost maybe, but I don't know. Cinderace can run Sucker Punch, Meowscarada can run Sucker Punch. Yeah, I mean it's mostly Sucker Punch, but as you can see, like, Even though this thing was a Sucker Punch, it's still probably going to die to it. I don't know how to evaluate the ability. I don't think the ability's great. I think it's just weird. It's kind of like Zoroark. Like, Zoroark's ability is really cool, but it usually doesn't do that much, except, like, give your opponent a headache. But I think the stats are really good, and, I mean, we've seen from Tapu Koko that Electric Fairy is a good type. And this is kind of like Tapu Koko, with a worse ability, but actual special fairy moves. And even faster. Really fast. This thing's really fast. Where do I rate it? I rated it staple. I don't think it's busted, because it has this problem of being really physically weak. But it's really good. It seems kind of like another Dragapult. It's doing this, like, fast pivot. Like, you can imagine this is a lead, and it's going to click Volt Switch, or it's going to click a move, and then it's going to switch out, and you don't know if it's still alive. It sounds really annoying. It might even be good enough to be banned. It's hard to tell. There's a possibility this goes to Upas, I think, just for being too annoying, too overbearing, because it's pretty strong. The thing that it's lacking is that its moves are pretty weak. It doesn't have any, like, massive 110 base power moves. It doesn't even have Thunderbolt, it's only got Discharge. So, although it has a pretty good special attack stat, it's a little weaker than it looks. But the speed is enough to make it, like, a really good pivot, I think, at the very least. Overall, really cool Pokemon. Cool design. I like it. Okay, next up is Spreading Hogwild Worldwide. This song has a really cool guitar riff, which I like. And I think the guitar riff says a lot about the stats we can expect from the Pokemon. So I'll play it here. And here are the stats. 101 base speed, which is usually quite a nice speed tier, because you outspeed all the base 100s. Really good physical bulk, poor to bad to awful attacking stats, and bad special defense. It doesn't wow the senses, does it? Abilities. Immunity, Thick Fat, Regenerator. So it's going for like a Snorlax thing. So it's fighting normal. Half fighting Snorlax. But Snorlax doesn't see any use in OU. Like, Snorlax got Power Crept ages ago. Obviously busted in GSC. BKC will tell you Snorlax is washed in Gen 3 OU, by which he will make me clarify, it's not that Snorlax is bad, it's that you can't build a team for Snorlax. Snorlax is good, but there's no way to construct a team around it. I've learned. BKC, I know. I've learned. But that's neither here or there, because I think it's got Regenerator. Snorlax wishes it had Regenerator. Regenerator is a good ability. Moves, U-turn and Volt Switch, and Parting Shot. So it's really going everywhere, right? It's spreading, it's moving around, you can't stop it from pivoting in and out. It's got Slack Off, it's got Body Press with a pretty good defense stat and stab. And yeah, I think this is pretty good. It's kind of like a Slowking Galar for physical Pokemon. I mean, it's weak to fighting, which is bad, because Zamazenta and Great Tusk are both really good. But it's kind of nice into King Gambit. King Gambit can't really hurt it, or is a Sucker Punch. It's got the Fighting Stab, can kind of pivot in, Parting Shot out, be annoying. The offensive stats are nothing to write home about. Maybe I'm overvaluing it. Maybe it's just kind of mediocre. But I feel like it's got to be decent, right? Regenerator, pretty good physical bulk. You can EV it a bunch of ways. Body Press is nice. I reckon it's got a niche. I don't think it's like meta-defining, but I think it's like if your team needs this particular toolset, you can. I mean, it's immune to Ghost from the normal type. There aren't any normal... Are there any normal types in OU? No. The only normal type in OU is Dragonite after it Terrors. So maybe this won't be OU either. I don't think this Pokemon would be OU by ranking. I think this is like a UU Pokemon, in the same way that Ticket to Ape Town is probably a UU Pokemon. Maybe Ticket to Ape Town is banned from UU, but it kind of... Ticket to Ape Town feels kind of the same as Ursaluna. This one just feels like another Regenerator Pokemon. And if Toxapex isn't rated in OU, then I don't think this will be. But Toxapex has a niche in OU. It's just not OU by usage. I think this could have a niche too, as a bulky pivot. Revival Blessing is fun. It hasn't really seen any use on Pawmot or Rebska, but maybe this one could do it, right? It seems to be a good move that's only held back because it's on bad Pokemon. So I'm kind of optimistic. Maybe I'm too optimistic about Spreading Hogwild Worldwide. Bracket The World Sings is the full track name. But I just like it. I think he's a fun pig. I like pigs. I think pigs are undervalued in society. Yeah, I think it's cool. Next up, Torkat Roooow. Here's a song. I don't have much to say about this because Game Freak are just releasing Torkat again. We've had this Pokemon. Alola came out like 8 years ago or something, and this is one of their like 12 leaked Pokemon is Torkat. To be fair though, Torkat is really cute. The problem with the Litten line is Incineroar is disgusting because Torkat lifted its paws up and became bipedal. I've been accused in the past of favoring quadrupedal Pokemon. So, you know, I am one of these grumpy old codgers who is like, oh, I liked it better when Pokemon didn't all become sort of anthropogenic humanoids in their final stage. But I should say, it's not bipedal animals that I take issue with. There's lots of bipedal animals that I like. What I take issue with is switching the number of feet a Pokemon stands on between evolutionary phases. So, I don't like Incineroar, I think he's gross. Because Torkat has his paws on the floor, and he should have kept his paws on the floor, and not gone into wrestling. But, by the same token, I find Samurott really annoying, because Duot is bipedal, and Oshawott is bipedal, so Samurott going down onto all four tetrapod is also quite discombobulating. I'm sure the kids have different opinions. For the purposes of Pokemon, I'm ancient. I'm withered, I'm graying in the face, so don't listen to me. These are the kind of rambling. You can say, okay, Grandpa, let's get you to bed. That's fine, I accept my fate. This all goes to say, Torkat's unusable. If it was usable, it would be being used, but Incineroar's unusable. I mean, it's bad. It's bad, look at those stats. It's bad. Eviolite. Torkat's bad. No one's using Torkat. Moving on. Humphrey's Big Score in the Land of Sand and Sea. This is my favorite track on the album. It is wonderful. Let's hear it.
And still we sing, oh, go back, take me home. Go back, take me home. Show me, go back, something unknown. Go back, help Humphrey, so overblown.
And let's have a look at the stats. Okay, so these are interesting. Again, there seems to be a lot of kind of physically bulky, slow Pokemon here. It's kind of like a Alola where everything's slow. Bad attack, pretty good special attack. Decent SPDF. I mean, that's a acceptable stats for it. Abilities. So it has 3 really interesting abilities. So Dry Skin gives it a water immunity, and maybe that's good. Sandstream, and you're like, this is a Hippowdon. This is like a special Hippowdon. Wow. And then Supreme Overlord. What the heck? I had to Google this. I was like, I thought Supreme Overlord only worked with physical attacks. And this thing has terrible physical attack. But no, it works with all moves. So it does actually boost Humphrey's damage with the special moves, which is really cool. That's a really interesting way to make the same ability have a different impact on a different kind of Pokemon compared to King Gambit. As for moves, well, it has good stab options, Scald and Earth Power, and good coverage with Energy Ball. It also has Shadow Ball. It's not on the list because I wanted to talk about Last Respects. Obviously, Last Respects is insane and banned, so we don't have to worry about it. But maybe it would be okay on this Pokemon because its attack is so bad. But I think Supreme Overlord boosted Last Respects. At the end of the game, 5 Pokemon have died, so it's 300 base power, and then Supreme Overlord gives it a 50% boost. Even with that 50 attack, it's still way too strong. So we're not worried about Last Respects. Maybe it'll do something. Oh, no, is Last Respects banned from Ubers? Maybe it is now. I don't know. Anyway, so we get Slack off. I'm like, wow, Hippowdon. You've got a kind of desert-themed alternate form. It gets a move called Take Me Home, which is really interesting. So Take Me Home has 2 effects. It's kind of like Manaphy's new move. What is it called? Take Heart? That cures all of its status conditions and gives it a Calm Mind boost. This has that first effect as well, so it cures all of Humphrey's status conditions. Burn, poison, they're gone. The secondary effect, though, is that it changes every Pokemon on the field into a ghost type. So it's kind of like Soak, but it hits you too. And in double battles, it hits every Pokemon, so it's both your opponents and your ally. So it's kind of a VGC move. If you're using it in singles, I think you're mainly using it for the status refreshing feature. Turning into a ghost type is not bad. You get Stab on Shadow Ball, and your opponent becomes a ghost type, so Shadow Ball is super effective against them. They probably don't have a ghost type move to beat you. They lose stab on their stab moves. You lose stab on Scald and Earth Power as well. So it's weird and hard to evaluate, but it's cool. I like it. It's a cool design. And yeah, Humphrey, I really like him. I don't know what you're running. I suspect that Sandstream has a niche with the classic Sand Force people. I was pondering in the previous recording whether Excadrill is in the game. I feel like maybe it isn't. Or maybe it is. There were so many memes about Tyranitar and Excadrill reuniting on the Stunfisk Reddit, which is the greatest place on the internet. But I can't remember if those lovers ever found each other or if they're still waiting for the border to open in Gen 10. Sad story, Dexit, for couples like Tyranitar and Excadrill, because they had such a good time in Gen 5 and 6. And 7. Yeah. So the Sandstream set probably has a use maybe, but this thing is like I think it's better than Hippowdon. I don't know if it's better than T-Tar. Doesn't get rocks. Lower BST, but kind of interesting. Move pool's pretty good. The Supreme Overlord set, I suspect, is good. Supreme Overlord is just a crazy ability. I don't think this Pokemon is cracked busted. I don't think it's going to get banned, but I think it's decent. I think it's good. I think it's better than those other two in B tier. Maybe could be an A tier, but I don't think this is a Pokemon you would need on every team. I think this is my team needs this 6th Pokemon to fill these defensive holes, or to give me sand. I'm imagining it in the lower numbers of OU, or maybe UU. But I think it'll be good wherever it ends up. I mean, it's got a good move pool, it's got a good type, and it's got good stats. That physical bulk is nothing to sneeze at. I think it could be an A-ranked Pokemon. Maybe it could even be an S-ranked Pokemon. I might just be underestimating it. The stats are good. Supreme Overlord is crazy. Typing is good. Maybe it gets banned. But this kind of Pokemon has too much counterplay, I think. Like, for one thing, you can use a Grass type, Rillaboom or Ogerpon, both of which are pretty good. Or Freeze Dry, right? Kyurem's out, so I don't know if there are any really good Freeze Dry users anymore. Pod! Pod, you're home! Pod, I've been waiting all day to see you. Hi! Pod came back. Pod's back. It meant I had to pause the recording. Pod needed a lot of attention and friendliness because he had been gone all day. He was so hungry and so nice. And he's okay. He's back. He's going outside now. So, let's get through the final third of this album. So this is Wailing Jeremiah. Here's the sound. Pod is determined to prevent me finishing this video. He got into a fight with a neighbor cat called Kimchi. Oh my god. Okay, Wailing Jeremiah. Here's the stats. Mental, right? Insane. I don't know what is going on. Terrible physical bulk, but insane special attack and special defense. Moderate speed. And this is one of these min-max Pokemon. It kind of looks like an Ultra Beast in terms of stats. It's crazy. I don't think it's good though. It needed to be faster, or it needed something else. As it stands, the special defense is not that useful. It makes it kind of okay on the special side. Special attack is obviously very, very high, but with that speed, I don't think it's good enough. When you see the abilities though, Shadow Tag. Shadow Tag is the point of the Pokemon. It's one of these weird Shadow Tag Pokemon. That's banned. Of course that's banned. And if it could use Shadow Tag, it would be Ubers, or banned from Ubers, of course. As it is, it has to use Soundproof, which is okay. Soundproof is fine, but it's not making you a legend. It's not making you cracked. Moves? Well, Hyper Voice, Psychic Noise, and Judgment. And I was like, what the heck, Judgment? Apparently, it can hold a plate. It will change the type of Judgment. It won't change Wailing Jeremiah and have multi-type like Arceus. But you can have a 100 base power move, kind of 120 because it's boosted by the plate, of any type. And then it's got a bunch of weird utility options. Perish Song, Trick. It's got Pain Split, which is kind of good with that 30 base HP. Okay, so what does it do? Well, it can click Judgment and do quite a lot of damage because of special attack. But to outspeed things, you're going to need a Choice Scarf. And then you can't use a Choice Specs, so you're not that strong. Apart from Judgment, its move pool is really narrow, just normal and psychic. So you're pretty restricted to those plus your stab. Now you probably want a Judgment to hit Steel types. So I'm thinking Ground Judgment, Fire Judgment, or Fighting Judgment. Probably Fighting Judgment, that sounds good. It's like better Focus Blast. But if you're running a plate to get judgment coverage, you're not running anything to help your speed out. And you're not running anything to boost your power that extremely. It looks like a gimmick. I mean, it'll be annoying in VGC where Shadow Tag is legal. But that physical bulk is absolutely atrocious. Yeah, it doesn't look good to me. I mean, I get what the gimmick's going for, and I might be missing something. It's not like just bad, it's just really weirdly min-maxed. It dies to a sucker punch extremely. I mean, it's weak to it, and it's got no physical bulk, so King Gambit can just click sucker punch and you die. You can't do anything about it. So, where do I put Wailing Jeremiah? Well, I think he's niche. The only reason I haven't put him in unusable is it feels like maybe there's something you can do. When you have a Pokemon with stats like this, if you can find a way to make the perfect set or the perfect team, maybe there's something you can do with it. But I don't think he's seeing regular play. He's way too hyper-specific. Okay, next up is Sean A. Crust. He's a water bug type.
Sean A. Crust, please come back to us.
So, what are his stats? Well, they're pretty middling. 570 BST is pretty high, but everything is kind of just pretty good. Abilities, Hospitality, Friend Guard, and Telepathy. He's a doubles Pokemon. These are all good abilities in doubles. I mean, Hospitality is really good on Sinistcha. Friend Guard is really good. It makes Pokemon like Clefairy viable, and Clefairy is otherwise pretty bad. And Telepathy is another doubles ability. So in singles, it basically doesn't have an ability, which is not a good sign for it, for our purposes. Moves, well, it gets some kind of colourful physical moves, Crab Hammer, Poison Jab, U-Turn, and then a bunch of these supportive moves, Revival, Blessing, Heal Pulse. I mean, it's interesting. Water Bug is okay, but it's just hard to think of a scenario where I'd rather have this than Araquanid. Araquanid hits harder with the Water Bubble, it's got way more special bulk, it's slower, this is faster, but this isn't fast enough to really make a difference. So I don't think it's usable. I think it's unusable just because it's really bland. In singles, it's really bland. All of its interestingness comes from its supportive abilities in a doubles format. So I'm not too excited about Sean A. Crust. If you play VGC, it's exciting, probably. Maybe it's really annoying. But here, I don't know. Revival Blessing hasn't proved to be absolutely busted on mediocre Pokemon. Next up, track 11. Insecticide is the death of us. Here's the sound.
I said Zumpy Wumpy Wham Chump, Zumpy Wumpy Wham Chump, 21 Jump Chump, 21 Chump, Tuggleberry, where are you?
So you hear that ba 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 ba, and you just know the stats are going to look like this. 21s in everything. Obviously it's incredibly squishy. It'll die to a faint breeze, or the sneeze of an elf, or 16 ants crawling up its leg. But the offensive stats are nice. I mean, it's a mixed attacker. It's kind of like a worse Pheromosa. Let's see what its abilities are. Aftermath, No Guard, Sturdy. So Sturdy is nice because its defenses are so low. No Guard is nice because its moveset is pretty good. Focus Blast, Hurricane for the special attacker. Gunk Shot, Megahorn for the physical attacker. And then it's got Tail Glow and Swords Dance. So it can set up and then do a bunch of damage. Those 100% accurate Gunk Shots and Megahorns sound pretty good. The Focus Blasts sound pretty good. It's so squishy though. I mean, if you can set up with it, that's great. But you have to kind of deal with all the opponent's threats that have priority first. But it's cool. I like it, and it does look strong. Like, it's got really high base power moves. Bug Poison is okay. I mean, the defensive typing is better than you'd expect. It's not that bad. It's got a 4 times resistance to fighting and a 4 times resistance to grass. But the defensive type doesn't matter on this Pokemon. We care about the offensive type. And it's okay with coverage. So as long as it's got fighting moves to hit steel types, it'll be okay. Which it does. It doesn't have anything to hit ghosts. It doesn't have any dark or ghost type moves. Ghosts are going to be a problem because they resist poison and bug. I don't know. I think the horrid defenses are too much of a downside for this to be crazily good. But I think it might be decent. It might have a niche. Just because it's really fast and it's really strong and it's got a colourful move pool. I think it has a shot of being like a sort of fast pivot / setup sweeper with focus sash. I think it's got a shot. Not going on every team though, it's like a hyper offense Pokemon. Finally, at long last, we have Goodbye Natural World. It's a poison ground type, kind of like Nidoking, and here's the sound.
Goodbye to the hard life that are wild. Goodbye to the Mecha Ape. Goodbye, Humphrey. Goodbye, Jeremiah.
Brings a tear to the eye, that song. The harrowing, somber feeling of saying goodbye to everything that we know and love. You know, it really hits in the midst of a global climate crisis when we don't know if we're going to wake up tomorrow and all the amphibians will be vanished, or there'll be 16 We don't know if we're going to wake up tomorrow and all the amphibians will be vanished deep in my heart. And those stats hit deep in my heart too, look at that. Offense is nothing to be excited about, but defensively, that's mental. 170 base HP is a lot. It's up there with those not quite blissy but really tanky guys like Snorlax and Guzzlord. And the special defense is crazy. Defense is 110. I mean, I kind of think of Lugia initially, in that it's just got really good bulk. It's probably slightly bulkier than Lugia, but slightly weaker. I don't know Lugia's stats off the top of my head, but this is Lugia-esque, I think. Abilities, Perish Body and Curse Body. Both are very interesting. Neither are like S tier going to make the Pokemon broken, but they're okay on a bulky thing. Curse Body's annoying, Perish Body's annoying. They're interesting. And then moves. So it's got a very defensively oriented moveset. It's got Earth Power for stabs, basically the only like high power move it gets. But it gets Acid Spray, so it can kind of wear things down, and it gets Seismic Toss, which I assume is like a reference to that Seismic Toss animation where they kind of Charizard takes you up and then he slams you down on the entire world. So it can just Seismic Toss things until they die. And then it gets Leech Seed, it gets Toxic, it gets Shore Up. So it's going to be impossible to kill, and it's going to wear you down. On stall, this thing sounds like a nightmare. It sounds so annoying. It doesn't get any entry hazards. That's one of the saving graces. I guess if you have like a grass poison type, it can't really do very much. But how are you killing this? How are you getting through it? You can't poison it because it's a poison type. It just sounds like really annoying. Oh, pod. That was another pod pause. He's very demanding. He really requires constant attention. There's a few calcs we can 2-hit KOs Lando with 8 mode after an Intimidate. This is boosted. Draco Meteor from Raging Bolt takes 3 hits to destroy the natural world. And it's not going to be able to do that because Draco Meteor debuffs Raging Bolt. So it's very tanky. The other thing is, look how this shuts down Iron Valiant. So it resists Fairy, it resists Fighting, it's immune to Thunderbolt if it's running Thunderbolt for coverage. It's bulky on both sides, so Psyshock isn't going to get Iron Valiant out. And a neutral move like Shadow Ball is doing 10% to the natural world. Iron Valiant can't do much. The Psychic move is its best bet, but it's not enough. So yeah, I think this looks really annoying for half of the metagame. It's really good against King Gambit and Golden Go and Raging Bolt and Dragapult. It resists Fighting, so it resists Zamazenta. It's weak to the ground types, but it's unclear whether it even loses. I think Landorus is probably quite a good switch in to this. But even then, like, Landorus going to get Toxic. I think it's too strong. But the thing is, stall Pokemon usually have more counterplay than offensive Pokemon. And there's been talk of Lugia dropping to OU for a while. So maybe it would be okay in OU. But I don't think so. I think the stats are too high. The defensive power is too strong. If it is an OU, Clodsire is never coming back to OU because this is like a Clodsire with 200 extra PST. Crazy. Crazy good. I could see it being an OU, but I think it's too much. I think it would be way too warping because every team would need to have a like dedicated natural world breaker, or else they wouldn't be able to destroy the natural world, and so they'd just lose. Yeah, poor natural world. I mean, too strong for its own good, some say. And that's it. So that's all 12 tracks of the natural world. I've got to wrap this up because Todd is so demanding. But yeah, check out the album on Spotify. It's a cornerstone of New Zealand culture. I think you'll like it. And I'll be back on Thursday afternoon for the regular draft upload. Have a good one, folks. See ya when you have a new president, and hopefully your country hasn't descended into a civil war if you live in America. And if you live in Britain, happy Guy Fawkes. I hope your parliament doesn't blow up this year either.